robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall, facing the entrance. When he saw King Esther standing in the court, he was pleased with her and held out to her the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. Then the king asked, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be given to you." "If it pleases the king," replied Esther, "let the king together with Haman come today to a banquet I have prepared for him." "Bring Haman at once," the king said, "so that we may do what she has prepared." As they were drinking wine, the king again asked Esther, "Now what is your petition? It will be given to you. And what is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted." Esther replied, "My petition and my request is this. If the king regard me with favor, and if he pleases the king to grant my permission and my petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for them. Then I will answer the king's question." Haman went out that day happy and in high spirits. But when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate and observed that he neither rose nor showed fear in his presence, he was filled with rage against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home, calling together his friend and Zeresh, his wife. Haman boasted to them about his vast wealth, his many sons, and all the ways the king had honored him, and now he had elevated him above all the other noble officers. "And that's not all," Haman added. I'm the only person Queen Esther invited to accompany the king to the banquet she gave. And she has invited me along with the king tomorrow. But all this gives me no satisfaction as long as I see the Jew, Mordecai, sitting in the king's gate." Now that was her uncle. His wife, Zeresh, and all his friends said to him, "Have a gallows built 70 feet high and ask the king in the morning to have Mordecai hanged on it. Then go with the king into the dinner and be happy." This suggestion delighted Haman, and he had the gallows built. God intervened, and a wonder series of events then took place. Chapter 6, verse 1. That night, the king could not sleep. So he ordered the book of the Chronicles, the records of his reign, to be brought in and read to him. It was found recorded that Mordecai was exposed to Bigthan and Teresh, two of the king's officials who guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate King
Xerxes.
What honor and recognition was Mordecai received for this? The king asked. "Nothing has been done for him," his attendants answered. The king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the place to speak to the king about hanging Mordecai. The story is building. There's interest now happening. We're going to see God work a mighty miracle. So Haman had just entered the outer courts of the palace to speak to the king about Mordecai on gallows he had erected for him. His attendants answered, Haman is standing in the court. Bring him in," the king ordered. When Haman entered, the king asked him, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Now Haman thought to himself, "Who is there that the king would rather honor than me?" So he answered the king, "For the man the king delights to honor, have them bring a royal robe the king has worn, and horse the king has ridden, one with the royal crest placed on his head. Then let the robe and the horse be entrusted to one of the king's most noble princesses. Let them robe the man the king delights to honor, and lead him on the horse through the city streets, proclaiming before him, 'This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor.'" "Go at once," the king commanded Haman. "Get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai the Jew." Ta-da! Can you believe that? Mordecai didn't want to bow down to him. He was frustrated and he was going to get even. He built a gallows that was going to hang him on, and he goes, and what happens? For such a time as this, the king couldn't sleep. So he tells him, "Bring the books of the Chronicles and let me see what's been written in them." there he found that Mordecai had showed the conspiracy to kill the king, and he was not honored. Now, you can't tell me that God did not intervene in that place, right? But what happened with Mordecai? He was faithful. He kept doing what he needed to do. He knew the plan that God had, and he knew that he had to do and be strong in who he was. So verse 11, so Haman got the robe and the horse, and he robed Mordecai and led him on horseback through the city streets, proclaiming before him, "This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor." After Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman rushed home with his head covered in grief and told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends everything that had happened to him. His advisors and his wife Zeresh said to him, "Since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has stated, is of Jewish origin, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come to ruin." While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman away to the banquet Esther had prepared. See, Haman was the king's prime minister. He was very high up in authority. He was, so to speak, his right man. And yet he was not honoring the king. He was honoring himself. He was honoring what he wanted to do. And do you see one more time in Scripture how somebody was going to try to get rid of the Jews? I mean, we see that as we go through all of it. We see it in our own society today. He was an egotistical and an ambitious man. He demanded that people bow to him as he passed by, something which Mordecai would not do. Enraged, Haman sought revenge not only for Mordecai, but also on the entire Jewish population of the empire. He persuaded the king to allow him to write a law permitting him to kill all the Jews and seize their property. But Esther exposed Haman's plot and true character to the king. As a result, the king granted the Jews the right to defend themselves and to destroy their enemies. Haman had constructed for Mordecai a gallows for execution, but the king used it to hang him on it instead. In his pride, he had boasted too much, and his words came back on him to haunt him and slay him. Esther chapter 7, verse 10, so they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's fury subsided. Esther 8:6. For how can I bear to see disaster fall on my people? How can I bear to see the destruction of my family? King.
Eunuch. Sorry, Xerxes. I was looking up the definition of eunuch. I didn't know what that meant. Sorry.
Oh, gosh.
You're fired.
I know.
Xerxes.
He's fired.
It's like Xerox.
Oh, God.
I was looking up a different definition.
That's right. So, anyway, Bev, I know exactly what you mean about devouring names, right? I looked up a lot of these in the Hebrew language, and I got a lot of the definitions, but that one wasn't in the definition, so that's why I couldn't pronounce it. All right. So, anyway, we get back to verse 7. King.
Xerxes.
Ahasuerus. That's another definition.
That's another one. All right, yes, that's the other definition. Replied to Queen Esther and to Mordecai the Jews, because Haman attacked the Jews, I have given his estate to Esther, and they have hanged him on the gallows. Now write another decree in the king's name in behalf of the Jews, as seemed best to you, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For no document written in the king's name and selected with his ring can be revoked. Chapter 9, verse 1, on the 13th day of the 12th month of Adar, the edict commanded by the king was to be carried out. On that day, the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, but now the tables were turned, and the Jews got the upper hand over those who hated them. For such a time as this, Esther was born. Esther became Mordecai's possession or her guardian. God chose her to be the queen because he knew that his people were in danger. She had no choice. She was chosen. She had to be queen. Can you imagine this young girl, beautiful, thinking, she could have been thinking anyway, how did I ever get in this place? I will never find my Mr. Wonderful. I have to be with him forever. Can you imagine what this young woman was thinking? You don't hear any sign of it as you read through Scripture. All you hear is her obedience, her surrender. She surrendered to her uncle and was obedient to what his wish was. In other words, as she surrendered to him, and she was now the queen, she had learned how to surrender to the king. He put her in that place to bring freedom to his people. For just such a time as this. The man in charge, the prime minister, wanting to kill Mordecai and wanting to kill all the Jewish people, what happened? It just so happened that Mordecai knew that they were plotting to kill the king, and he did something about it. For such a time as this, written in the Chronicles. Just so happened, God kept the king awake all night long. I need to do something with all this time that I'm awake. Okay, go bring my Chronicles. Let me read and see what's going on in my kingdom. And there it was, Mordecai. For just a time as this. And then who does he call in? The enemy of Mordecai. Now, what should we do for somebody in the kingdom that has done such a marvelous thing? So Haman thought it was him. So he said, oh gosh, get him a robe and get him the horse and march him through town and show him off a little bit. And then what did he find out? It was the one he hated the most. He had to humble himself. He had to put Mordecai on that horse. He had to robe him with the king's robe. Then he had to lead him through town saying that this was the king's pleasure. For such a time as this, save Mordecai's life. The plan that Haman and his group had to kill Mordecai and the Jews backfired. But see, the edict was still written. And so what happened was there had to be another one to override that one, because that one was still in effect. It was out there. They had permission to kill the Jews, and they had permission to do all that. But now Esther had written another one, and it said that now they were able to protect themselves for such a time as this. We're looking at that lifespan, and we're seeing what God had planned. We're all Mordecai's and Esther's sitting here. Our mission might not be as grand as setting the captives free or the Jewish, but we've got a Gentile nation out here that doesn't know Jesus. We're the Esthers and the Mordecais that are supposed to go out and set the captives free. And Jesus has us in this time span for just a time as this. You are not a mistake. Those of you that were born out of wedlock, God says you're not a mistake. He had a plan and purpose for your life, and He used that person to bring you into this presence. Those of you that were born and felt I had no value growing up, I was never appreciated, I was never loved, God had a plan and a purpose for you. You were born in this season of time. He had a plan and purpose. He loves you.